Have you ever imagined what the world would be like if everyone obeyed our Creator? There would be no crime, there would be no broken families and fatherless children that result from adultery and other evils like this. It would be an incredible world where people lived to love one another and to care for one another and to help one another to one day enter into eternal life in our Creator's family. And this world is about here. Since being called into the truth, my family and I have not had direct fellowship with others who are being called into the truth until this past week. We have been in email contact with some, and this has been awesome, but we have not been around others of like mind on a physical plane until now. What an experience the last few days have been. It has been incredible to live around others who are seeking to be in agreement with our Elohim. I look so forward to all that opposes him to be purged out so that the whole world can experience this joy. He commanded those who he called to become his children to purge out evil from our midst and to cleave unto him and to help him build his family. And the whole world would have been blessed through their example if it had been more than a small flock who had hearkened to him, and the world would have been healed. But this has not happened. Only a small flock heeded to his word during the first nearly 6,000 years, and his truth that they represented has been suppressed and scoffed at by the world, and the world has continued in its filth, and evil was not purged out. The world has not known their Creator except for this small flock. The reason why they have not known him is they have rejected him. They have rejected his righteousness. Therefore, they have not been taught to be as he is. One person asked me a couple weeks ago if I would stone a person for breaking the Sabbath command. My answer is yes, because not only did he command us to do this, his righteousness calls for it. I would certainly not do so based on my own judgment. I would do as Moses did and inquire of my Father, and if he said to stone him or her, so be it. Granted, I cannot imagine how horrific an experience this would be to do so, but I also know that the reason why almost no one in the world obeys our Creator today is because those who do not obey him have not been punished for their disobedience to him. If his will is to be done on earth as it is in heaven, this has to change. We have to purge out that which opposes his will. My question for each of you is, why wouldn't you do as he commanded on this subject? Do you know better than our Creator does? Concerning the man who was caught gathering wood on the Sabbath, Moses recorded in Numbers 15, and Yahweh said to Moses, "The man shall surely be put to death. All of the congregation shall stone him with stones outside of the camp." And all of the congregation brought him outside of the camp and stoned him with stones. And he died as Yahweh commanded Moses. Obviously, stoning someone would be a very terrible thing to accomplish, yet we're commanded to. But don't you think that profaning our Creator's commandments is a terrible thing to do as well? Don't you think that it's warranted? Especially in regards to his Sabbaths, because he set them apart to help set us apart to become his children. But most of you could care less about his Sabbath commandment or any of his commandments. Most of you could care less why he gave them to us, so you think that the death penalty is just too harsh of a punishment for what you consider to be no big deal. Well, the Sabbath is a big deal for our Creator because he commanded it. It is a big enough deal for him that he commanded the death penalty for those who break it. I can assure you that if you refuse to turn to obeying his Sabbath commandment in the coming days, and to when he says that it is, you will be purged out, just like if you refuse to turn to all of his commandments. I can assure you of this in the authority that was given to me to make this assurance by Yahweh Elohim, the eternal self-existing Creator. If you do not want to hearken to his word, you have no place with him. Therefore, you have no place in his family. Some of you might be thinking, what about the woman that was brought before Yeshua for committing adultery? I've spoken about this in other videos, but I did not know an important piece of information when I spoke about it in the past. I spoke that if this event happened the way that it was recorded, that the only thing that could have been the case is Yeshua saw her sincere brokenness for her abomination, and He pardoned her on the condition that she would go and sin no more. This is certainly a possibility if she was just torn up and broken inside, because we are to forgive. But there certainly is conditions on forgiveness. This would have been the only reason why she would have been pardoned if the event had happened. I say this because Yeshua plainly taught that he did not come to get rid of one punctuation mark from his Father's Torah, and this would include stoning the adulterer. He did not take anything away from his Father's Torah except bringing a substitution for the sacrificial system. He magnified his Father's Torah just like Isaiah prophesied that he would. This is what he was sent to do. It turns out that the event of the woman caught in adultery was not even recorded in the original copies of the text of the book of John where it is found in today's Bibles. This entire event was added to the copies of the text of the book around 1,000 to 1,100 years after this event supposedly happened. Was there a 1,000-year-old witness around then to have the authority to make this addition to the text in the book of John? I think not. It was added to try to make it look like or to add credibility to Christianity's belief that Yeshua did away with the stoning of the adulterer, but he did not. If Yeshua had made such a change, our Creator would have made sure that this information was available to us. All of his texts that we needed to return to him are in the book that we call the Bible, but there certainly have been additions. He would not have had his servants record that his end-time servant would be sent with the command to return to his Torah with the statutes and judgments if they had been done away with. It's insanity to think so. Yeshua testified to the writings of the prophets. He testified to the Torah. Our Elohim allowed for things to be added to the text to test us and to prove us whether we would diligently seek his truth through Satan's nets or not. It's a matter of following him and obeying his voice and not listening to the enemy. The enemy was put here for this reason, and he prospered because most of you did not seek our Creator's righteousness. If stoning the adulterer or those who commit other abominations such as profaning the Sabbath is too harsh for you, this shows that you have an uncircumcised heart. Yes, it would be terrible to have to stone someone, but at least this person would not be around to teach others to not obey our Elohim. And evil would be put out from our midst, and the world would have been healed. If you cannot see this, the reason why is you do not think that disobeying our Creator is a big deal, and you do not think that obtaining his righteousness is a big deal. Yet it is a big deal because it is why he put us here in the flesh. He put us here to become as he is, and we must hearken to him in order for this to be accomplished. Most of you would rather tell him how and when you will serve him. Here is a quote about this event in John 8 and with the woman caught in adultery from a textual critic named Bart Ehrman, who has examined all of the evidence of the New Testament manuscripts, and this evidence can be backed up elsewhere. Bart said, despite the brilliance of the story, its captivating quality, and its inherent intrigue, there is one other enormous problem that it poses. As it turns out, it was not originally in the Gospel of John. In fact, it was not originally part of any of the Gospels. It was added by later scribes. He goes on to add, how do we know this? In fact, he says, scholars who work on the manuscript tradition have no doubts about this particular case. Later in this book, we will be examining the greater depth of the kinds of evidence that scholars adduce for making judgments of this sort. Here I can simply point out a few basic facts and that have provided convincing to nearly all scholars of every persuasion. So it's not just him that believes this. And the ones that don't believe it use ridiculous reasoning for saying so differently. And here's his few basic facts that he points out. He says the story is not found in our oldest and best manuscripts of the Gospel of John. He also says that its writing style is very different from what we find in the rest of John, including the stories immediately before and after. And he says that it includes a large number of words and phrases that are otherwise alien to the gospel. And this is his next quote. The conclusion is unavoidable. This passage was not originally part of the gospel. So for those of you who want to say that Yeshua removed the punishment for the adulterer, your evidence is pretty skimpy, especially when an eyewitness recorded him saying that he did not come to get rid of one punctuation mark from his father's Torah until heaven and earth pass away. Why don't you look out the window? And his father's prophet Isaiah clearly said that he would magnify the Torah, not get rid of it. This is what he was prophesied to do. If he got rid of any of it, he broke the scriptures, and he is not the Messiah, so you better get looking for another Messiah. And he did not do this because he is the Messiah. He did not even get rid of the sacrifices. He merely provided a substitute for them. Folks, it's time to come out of your false beliefs, because my Father is going to purge out that which does not. Look at the world. Has it worked out with man going their own way and not obeying our Elohim? The man that was stoned that day was never able to teach his children to disobey their Creator from that day forward. This was the loving thing to do for his children's sake and for other people in the community's sake. With this man in their life, his children had no or little chance to one day be in the kingdom of Elohim. And this man could have influenced others and led them to the lake of fire. You think that's more just, to let the man live and lead people to eternity burnt up, dead, never to be in the kingdom of Elohim? Is that your idea of love? Well, it is, obviously, because you don't want to purge out evil. The adulterer that is stoned is no longer able to break up families and hurt their spouses. I think that the statistic in America is something like over 50% of husband and wives have committed adultery. This is just blasphemous and sick. Just look at all of the hurt and all of the suffering that has been caused by this one sin alone. Stone a couple of them and see what happens to this statistic. It's going to get shortened in a hurry. And people would learn to fear doing that which is evil in our Elohim's sight. And what is evil in his eyes would become evil in our eyes as we practice his righteousness. The world would seek to be found in his favor and seek to love one another as we are commanded to, and to love him. That's why he said if we love him, we'll keep his commandments. And wow, what a world it would be to raise our families in. This is the world that I want to be a part of. How about you? Or are you more righteous than our Creator? If you are about ready to find out that your righteousness is like a filthy rag before my Father's face. And you will be purged out so that you will not be able to get in the way of his will finally being done on earth as it is in his heavens. And all nations will finally be blessed through the descendants of Abraham. The descendants who became Elohim's first fruits will rule here on earth with his Son, and evil will be purged out. If you choose to not want this, not want to be a part of it, you will not be a part of it. If you would rather tell him when his Sabbaths are and continue to turn the other cheek to adultery and to all of the other abominations, dying you will die. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim.